What's up, guys? Welcome to Podcast 412, Fight for Purity. A bold way of looking at challenges that young people are facing. We'll talk about the naked truth of life and how to handle the problems you're thinking but not talking about. So strap in, get ready for another great podcast.
This podcast episode is not considered age appropriate due to discussion of sensitive topics. Parent or guardian discretion is advised.
Alrighty, welcome back. So the last podcast we were talking about Delilah and Samson, and we are going to expand on that conversation. But before we do that, we are going to have a fun info, I guess. I don't know.
Fun fact of the
Fun
day.
fact.
Or, I don't know, night
Of the night.
episode.
Yeah, there you go.
So it says here that the second longest finger for most women is next to their thumb. That would be this one, the index finger. But for men, it's this one. It's the opposite. They usually have ring fingers, those next to their pinky finger, that are longer than their index fingers. Mine are even.
Mine is the opposite.
I do not fit.
I don't fit it either. My
I
ring
do.
finger's the.
Yeah, so look
Mine
at
do. My ring finger is longer, or the second longest. I'm sorry. What is that?
Yeah,
My
index.
index finger.
Also, that's not.
My index finger is the second longest, and then, but only on this hand. I don't think, or maybe is it the same?
Even.
I
You're
feel
like,
like it's even.
you're like Ted.
yeah, you're even too, huh?
That's even.
You're only half
Yeah.
half the average.
So that's where most it said.
Most.
For
It didn't say average, it said most women. This finger right here is longer.
No.
The second longest.
This one is.
it's this one.
Your
sorry.
index
Your
finger
index
is
finger.
the longest.
I am not most
But
women.
yeah,
You're
I'm not
pointing.
either.
Your pointing,
Your pointing
finger.
finger. So this one. And then for guys, right? It's this
The
one.
guys is
The ring
For
finger.
guys, so this finger is longer.
And so
than-
that was true
Yeah,
for my
the
husband
second.
when I looked at his.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
to
The
go check
second,
mine.
yeah.
Yeah.
So not the longest, the second longest.
Second, yeah.
So we just thought that was so you guys can check. You can look at your kids' hands or
If you're part of the average.
yeah, no, most.
Oh, most.
if you're
Most.
part
If you're
of
part of
most,
most.
yeah.
Part of most. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
say average. Just said the most
The
women.
most.
Most
Yeah.
women and most.
Yes.
Yeah,
For most women.
most women.
Okay.
And then for guys, it's yeah.
And then I also found out this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But I always wondered why it's called our ring finger. And then she told me, well, not you specifically, but someone told me that apparently the vein, this is the only finger where the vein reaches all the way to your heart. So I was like, oh, that's cute.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
So that's why.
your wedding ring. Goes
That's
on.
why, yeah. I was like, because I didn't think, I was like, what's the point? What does it matter? What what finger?
Put on your thumb.
Yeah. I'm like, what makes it so
special. Why
Special.
This
Yeah.
year?
So now I know.
So some
That makes
things.
sense.
So something
cute.
that you can know. Yeah.
El corazón.
All right. So we were talking about Samson. Past couple episodes, we've been talking about Samson and Delilah, and one of the things that I found, like just as far as her characteristics, was obviously that she was beautiful. She had beauty. She had personal charm. Okay, she had mental ability. Self-command. She had nerve. You know, so
That indeed.
you know those don't sound like.
Bad.
They don't sound like bad qualities, right? You know, so and it's kind of funny, as I said, you know, she was someone to be admired for some qualities that she exhibited, but also utterly disapproved, it said. So, you know, even though they don't sound, which probably are good qualities, but then what ended up happening is, well, we saw that eventually she ended up taking Samson's strength. And then one of the things they said about that, basically Samson and was that he was captured. So we're talking about a strong man, you know, like strong.
Like Hercules strong.
Yeah, Hercules strong and yeah. And he was captured, he was imprisoned and blinded and then forced to grind grain for his enemies. And one of the things that we talked about a little bit was that here's a man that thought probably that he was strong and he could overcome anything.
Invincible.
Yeah, you know, but there were decisions that he made previous to meeting. If you know the story of Samson, he made some decisions previously to meeting Delilah. And that kind of,
Like broke him down.
yeah, broke him down. It wasn't like an overnight thing. It wasn't like he met Delilah and then, all this, but there were like compromises that he made and things that he did and other women that he involved himself with. And eventually he ended up with a,
Kind of like he broke his own like rules, his own standards.
Yeah.
in
He
the
was
be-
tearing down his own wall.
tearing down his own walls.
his boundaries.
His
'Cause
boundaries, yeah.
he was supposed to have like boundaries in his life. And slowly those things like just got pushed and pushed.
His wall went from being a wall to like a picket
Yeah.
fence. So that by the time Delilah came around, she just had to kind of kick it a few times.
Yeah, it took a few times, but yeah. But, it just shows you that you might think, especially if you're a male, you think, well, I got this. I'm strong enough to overcome this. I'm strong enough to put up or to have someone like this in my life and I'll be fine. But then you end up realizing that's not true. Where you think, I think a lot of guys think, well, I'm strong. I can handle it. I can handle this relationship. I can handle not having morals or not having boundaries. But yet you're going to probably end up like this guy.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
he didn't even have like a sense. Well, I
You
don't
couldn't
know.
even tell like
Yeah,
she was
like-
trying to take him down.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys understand discernment, but like he had no discernment when he finally came up to her because she sounds pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but no like discernment of knowing like that she was actually trouble because her actions showed. So maybe she had all those qualities and stuff, but her actions.
Well, it's like how you use them, like we've said from the beginning, like your conduct, your own behavior, your standards. She's got great qualities, but because of how she was using them, she didn't have the same kind of standards that Samson had or was supposed to have.
Yeah. And then I like what you said, just that the fact that here she is like trying to find out the secret to his strength and him
He's a
not
little
realizing it.
simple-minded.
He's like, he's like subtly giving little hints here and there, not fully, giving it all, but just the fact that, like you said, he didn't see it. Or maybe he didn't want to see it, but just that she was able to kind of manipulate him by her, I don't know, her consistent persuasion.
Well, even like it says, like he got to the point where he got bugged with her, so he just gave in. Just I guess to, I don't know, like to shut her up or.
Yeah.
But then like it cost him his sight. He literally went blind for real.
Yeah, and then in prison. And, it physically that happened to him, but, that happens to you as well, I think, if you're male and you're caught up in like just an immoral lifestyle.
Well, it's crazy though because it's socially acceptable. I remember the word for men to have like multiple partners. Like they look
To be doors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're more applauded, I guess. It's like more of like
It's normal.
it's normal for them.
Expected, I think.
Yeah, and it's becoming more acceptable for girls to be
The same way.
the same way, to be doors, But, once you open that door, it's...
You can't just like close it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's like opening the door underwater. All of it just comes rushing in. You can't just, close the door to stop it.
Yeah.
That's going to take twice as much effort to close it as it did to open it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna have to patch a few holes.
So one of the things, and I don't know, maybe you can kind of chime in on what you heard or
Oh, I guess
how some guy explained it for him.
there is a guy who was talking about because he did live a very promiscuous,
Yeah,
what I guess you would say, a very promiscuous life, but since he was like a kid, and when I say a kid, I mean like 12, and he didn't realize after that first, I guess, encounter with a woman, he didn't realize how many doors it was opening up for him. And he admitted himself, he was like, I grew up a pervert because I was controlled by my lust and I was controlled with the emotion of it and the pleasure you get from it. And so he's like, but I didn't realize that I was going to use that specific, I guess, conduct to try and fix my insecurities, to try and fix my own issues that I had and even my identity. He was like, I thought I was going to find my masculinity and my identity with all these multiple partners. But at the end of the day, I was still the same person. I was still insecure. I was still had no idea who I was as a person. But in my brain that somehow being with these women was gonna fix that, and it never did. He was like, it never did. It never satisfied. It never. But the reason, even though I knew that it wasn't gonna fix anything, I was willing to settle for a moment of pleasure to fool myself into thinking that one day
This will work.
this will work.
It hasn't worked this whole time.
It hasn't worked, but maybe one day.
Definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and again, expecting a different result.
Yeah, so for him specifically, I don't know if it's like that for every guy. And then I'm sure like with a guy, like how we said, it's applauded. So it is easier for you to not see anything wrong with it, because you are applauded as a male. If the more partners you have, and the more.
But not if you're a female.
If a female, it is
You got to keep it more like on the down low.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe not as much anymore.
No,
but
maybe not. But
back then, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so one of the things about Delilah is that when you look at promiscuity, I guess, and if we compare, I don't know if she was, I don't know if she was. We don't know too much about Delilah. But other than, we did talk about promiscuity. And so basically being promiscuous is you just have many partners. You're not restricted to like one relationship, And so you put yourself at greater risk for some things. And so one of the things that that I looked at was you have a greater risk of STDs. You guys know what STDs are, right? Yes. Okay. Transmitted diseases. Okay. And you're more prone to prostate cancer, which is for guys, and then cervical cancer for girls. And so it's not a good thing. You put yourself in a position where you're just you risk so much, health-wise. There's also, there's also a high risk that you're going to have, you're going to change partners frequently. You're basically you're not going to have long-term relationships. You're just going to be from this one to this one to this one to that one. It also says that there's heavy drinking. You're more prone to heavy drinking. You're more prone to gambling. And there's a higher risk of you having depression, suicide, and abuse. And also poor diet, not enough sleep. And also, I guess it says chronic diseases. And also, it takes a toll on your emotional health. It can lead to problems with how you see yourself and ineffective relationships. And it says this again, symptoms of depression. And so, sorry. Oh, and then one of the last things that it said in here was you don't get a chance to form independence.
it's kind of like what she was saying.
Yeah.
You didn't know who he was.
Yeah, you rely on your relationships outside, because, like you said, you have no identity to who you are or the kind of person that you want to be, because you're so caught up in these other things, trying to, I guess, kind of try to finding your identity. So.
And maybe these girls don't start off wanting to be just with partner after partner right away. But when you get with someone and, you're finding your identity in that relationship, because as you guys are getting older, you're trying to learn who you are and stuff. But when you get in relationships so young, your identity is also in that, because then you have someone there. And even if you allow your friends, even friends to sit there and kind of tell you who you are and peer pressure you and all those other things, you go from relationship to relationship, because I think eventually you crave, someone telling you you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're amazing,
you're wanted.
Yeah, you're wanted. Yeah. So, and I've seen that, and from what I've heard from now that I have middle schoolers, and I know some high schoolers, and from what I've seen, and even though I've talked to some of them, it's, when I look at the choices that they're making, it's people would look at it and say, well, she's a hoochie because she's, but then when I see it, I'm like, gosh, they just want to be loved. And then the backstory of them. So I don't know what the backstory of Delilah is, that she would allow herself to even just for money to bring down someone. But I don't know. So like, and you just get used to it, and then the culture that we live in too, then your girls are now, how we said, like being applauded to, like the songs that are out there, they promote it, everything promotes it. But I don't know if every girl starts off like
Right.
Wanting that.
yeah,
right
but
away.
then
That's the lifestyle I want.
yeah, but then you don't realize all the consequences to that, like to have all these different things and to have the codependency to depend on someone else to tell you that you're worth something. So then you get into all these things, you start living a lifestyle that maybe you wouldn't have before. One time me and my husband were talking about, like, even, I don't know how we got into the conversation, but it was like for someone that he had known to get in a relationship, for their parents to allow it. Like when he finally got in a relationship with this person, they were willing to go further because they were already starting off. They set those boundaries in the first relationship, but then because they got into the next one, and I've also seen it in someone else that I know, that when they got into the next relationship, they were willing to go further.
Each time.
Yeah, further, like with their body further. They had morals at first, or they had boundaries, like I'm not going to do that because of my worth, but then the relationship before kind of broke them down, so they're willing to do a little bit more. Yeah, to, I don't know, keep them, or
Yeah, and I think that's
So-
a big struggle, like just identity wise. Like you hear it, or like I don't know if you guys ever heard it when you were in school, like your whole identity. Like how do you measure that? I guess you know what I mean. Because so many of the like nowadays, everything that you find identity in is probably on social media. Social media tells you, well, if you look this way, you're going to be popular, or if you do this, or if you're with, all these different people, that's where you're going to find your identity at. And I don't know what it's like in high school. I don't know. I think it's hard for people to understand what we mean about, like, when you're trying to find your identity,
I mean, I guess the simplest way to describe it is just like who you are. It's who you are.
That's like a big question.
It is.
When you think about, we talk about it a lot.
Yeah,
but-
because it's not just, because I think when people think identity, it's how you look, it's how you dress, maybe it's how you talk or who you hang out with, but it's like so much more than that. It's
your character,
your personality, what you like and don't like, like how you get along with people, because there's some people who can talk to strangers really well. They can make a best friend on that 15-minute like car ride in Uber, and then there's people who, like, it takes them like a whole like 7 days to finally decide, you know what, I think I could be your friend. Maybe, like, it's like there's different like kinds of people, and I think that's kind of what we're talking about, like who are you, like, but you can't figure out who you are if you're kind of codependent, like we said, like if your conduct is kind of letting your walls be broken down, if your standards and your behavior isn't like set in stone, then kind of everything's
because I feel like social media, or that just that whole social thing, is they're telling you what's gonna identify you is how beautiful you are, or how you look, or how sexually appealing you are to the opposite sex. And I feel like people get caught up in that, and it's like, well, you're not gonna find who you are by getting all this attention, because any girl can get attention from a guy if she dresses a
certain way.
yeah. And so I feel like it's something that you gotta know who you are. What, like you said, your personality, what are you confident in, like what talents do you have, what things do you like to do. I think a lot of kids, they don't know that. They don't know like who they are, because they put so much
they're codependent.
on other
their
things,
friends,
on their friends,
on
or
being accepted more than
boyfriends, popularity.
I guess that's what it is you're more worried about being accepted than actually being yourself.
yeah.
And then not only just being yourself, but also knowing what you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't, like, I know especially like a lot of kids who have trouble like with a relationship with their parents, they see right away, I do not want to be like that, because they know what it's like to be on the other end. And then, but if you're constantly, I guess, but more worried about being accepted than working on not being this way.
Yeah.
You might eventually end up like that, even though you tried your hardest. You didn't want to, but because you were more worried about being accepted, you eventually, unfortunately, went you went a long way, but the wrong way.
And that's probably what it is that you're dealing with nowadays, is you just want to be accepted or you want to be loved, but you're trying to do it by having
The outside, I guess.
Yeah, you're focusing on what's, or what, like who likes me or who's watching me or who's texting me or who's calling me or who's liking me on whatever the...
Yeah. So you got to have all these qualities and use them for the wrong reasons because you're allowing other people to dictate.
It just so when like thinking it like, oh my gosh. Here we go. So when we had MySpace, it's just bringing up oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. Well, anyways, so I had gone through a breakup, and so before there was this picture that I had on my MySpace, and it had underneath, because like you could caption like your photos, but it had so and so's girl. So like when I was in the relationship, so that's who I was so and so's girl. But then when we broke up, I had to change it, and I was like no one's girl. So like I was so that's what, like,
Make my stand right here.
No, yeah, hearing, like, that's what's bringing up in my mind. Like, so I just see that picture and I see the caption and I'm just like, oh my gosh, don't find your worth in other people.
Don't be so-and-so's girl.
Yeah, you don't need to be someone's girl. You don't need to be known.
It didn't
title.
even
Yeah.
have your name.
So-and-so's girl. Like, so like, it was just popping up in my head and I was like, oh my gosh. Because I was constantly looking for that validation, not in the right things. Yeah. So like I was like, I need to do this to be accepted. So
And I think it's still like that. Yeah, it's still like that. So we're gonna come back. We're gonna take a pause for a little bit, and then we'll come back.
And we'll come back to this idea of identity and not
who
being.
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're figuring it out together.
Thanks for listening. Join us for our next podcast. You can contact us through Instagram at podcast412 or email us at 412fight@gmail.com. See you next time.